So last month was a doozy. So this month I'm just cutting the crap, okay? No B camera, no friends and loved ones for me to riff on. Just me chatting to a buddy. You know, just telling him about the movies I saw in November, the streaming movies in November. Let's go. Operation Christmas Drop is hellish. First of all, it's a boring, flat, unfunny rom-com with no meaningful chemistry between its two uncharismatic leads. But also, it's about how kind and caring the US military is, and how great it is that they're an active presence on so many Pacific islands. Fuck that. That's a big 1 out of 10 for me. There is I would encourage you to not fuck off. Jingle Jangle, A Christmas Journey. That's me checking my notes. It's about a famous toy maker who got swindled by his former protege and must fight to clear his name and defeat the young thief who profited off of his stolen ideas. It's pretty good. It's pretty okay. I was into it. The Forrest Whitaker and Keegan-Michael Key both sing, and they're both pretty good at it. The choreography's fun, and the sets are mostly practical, and they're pretty creative and interesting, so I liked that. It's a totally decent movie. The only meaningful problem I have with it is that it is, let me just double check my numbers here, 3 hours and 40 minutes long, so that's, not ideal. But other than that, totally fine movie, 6 out of 10. So in the first Princess Switch, a small-town baker and a European princess who just happen to look exactly like each other switch places in order to both find love. Spoiler alert for the Princess Switch, by the way. But now, in the Princess Switch 2, Switched Again, the princess, Vanessa Hudgens, breaks up with her baker boyfriend, and then they're like, why'd we break up? Whatever happened with that? But she's so busy, she doesn't have time to figure out why she broke up with her boyfriend. So the two Vanessa Hudgenses switch again in order to give the princess Vanessa Hudgens time to talk to her boyfriend. But what they don't know is that this time there's a third Vanessa Hudgens, and this one is evil. And then hilarity ensues. I mean, look, it's totally fine. It's exactly what you would expect from the Princess Switch 2, Switched Again. More fun to watch with friends that you can kind of dunk on it with. But ultimately, par for the course. And I'm not even gonna fucking pretend like Vanessa Hudgens isn't super good in this. She's doing a lot of really interesting character work in order to differentiate these 3 different identical characters she has to play. I'm never confused about which princess I'm looking at. That's not nothing. That takes talent. Anyway, 5 out of 10. Princess Switch 2, Switched Again. Perfectly what you would expect from it. So Run is director Anish Chaganty. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Chaganty? Chaganty? Not gonna put that in the video. It's his follow-up to the sleeper hit screen capture thriller Searching from 2018. This is another thriller from him, this time about a mother and a wheelchair-bound daughter. The daughter, who suffers from myriad health problems, starts to become suspicious of all the medications that her mother is giving her, and she slowly starts to unravel this conspiracy being perpetrated against her by her own mother. It's good. It's totally good. A very tense, classic thriller stuff. It's sort of riffing on Rear Window in its own kind of way. And it's also the only movie I've ever seen where a teenager eating her lunch in order to manage her diabetes is played for genuine thrills. It kind of rules. Anyway, 7 out of 10. Okay. I know I said I was going to make this whole video short and sweet, but I need to dig in on Hillbilly Elegy for just a minute here. I hope you will humor me in giving me just a minute for Hillbilly Elegy, okay? There are a lot of awards bait movies in this world that are, in my opinion, quite bad, despite widespread audience and awards attention that they get. Green Book comes to mind. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, Joker, Bohemian Rhapsody. You know the kind of movies I'm talking about? These movies were all hugely popular and beloved, depending on who you talk to, because they are well-made, dramatically engaging, tight, slick movies that feel good to watch, even though all of that technical craft is in service of a story and ideas that are sometimes empty and thoughtless, sometimes crass and mean, sometimes downright reprehensible. But they're not boring. That was the kind of movie I was expecting Hillbilly Elegy to be. It's a Ron Howard movie, seemingly designed in a lab to move Oscar voters first and audiences second. But Hillbilly Elegy isn't even that. It gets to be politically repugnant and an ill-executed disaster at the same time, which not a lot of Oscar bait movies can pull off. For some context about the memoir upon which Hillbilly Elegy is based, I'm going to defer to IndieWire film critic David Ehrlich, who writes, J.D. Vance's autobiography reads like a tortured account of survivors' guilt from someone desperate to justify his success and make peace with their one-way transition from yokel to yuppie. His victim-blaming generalizations about the social mobility of working-class Americans so minimized the need for governmental support that it felt like he was pulling up the ladder behind him. Between the writing of the character and Amy Adams' performance, the movie paints a real-life Kentucky woman as a violent, manic psycho with absolutely no self-awareness or sense of personal responsibility. She is an angry idiot who can't help but beat her son every time he trips and knocks something over, which happens 3 different times in this movie. It paints impoverished Americans as irresponsible, unintelligent, and incapable, without giving any critical attention to the institutional structures pressing down on them, and preaches that all it takes is hard work to rise above poverty and get a job at a Cambridge law firm, just like J.D. Vance did. And on top of all of that, it just sucks balls, also. Anyway, 2 out of 10, next movie. In 2017, The Christmas Chronicles was a simple, by-the-numbers Christmas movie with the slam-dunk pitch of, what if Kurt Russell played Santa Claus? 2 siblings are sad because their dad's dead, but then one fateful Christmas Eve, they run into Santa Claus, whose sleigh isn't working, so they have to go on an adventure to help Santa save Christmas. And Kurt Russell is Santa Claus the whole time. And you know what? It's perfectly fine. It is a genuinely serviceable Christmas movie. But now, in 2020, producer Chris Columbus has graduated to director, and the sequel to Christmas Chronicles is a lot more involved. The Christmas Chronicles Part 2 is a weirdly complicated and world-building forward movie with the slam dunk pitch of, what if Goldie Hawn was Mrs. Claus? This movie spends so much energy on telling all the rules and structures of this particular version of the North Pole. It's easily the most lore-heavy Christmas movie in the modern canon. There's even time travel at one point, and the girl goes back in time and talks to her dead dad as a kid. There's a lot going on. But all that said, it's still pretty okay. I still liked it more than I didn't. Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn are great, obviously, and it's super fun to see Julian Dennison still getting work post-puberty. It's the first time I've seen him in something since Deadpool 2. I don't know, I like seeing him show up. It's very different. It's very different from the original, but equally fine. 6 out of 10. Ugh, okay, so Happiest Season, in my opinion, completely fails as both a romance and a comedy. The 2 leads have absolutely no chemistry, and Kristen Stewart does not even appear to understand that she's in a comedy. And even Mackenzie Davis can't bring enough pathos to her character, who is the worst girlfriend in the world, to make their romance make even the slightest bit of sense. Romantic comedies live and die based on the charisma of their leads, and these 2 people have the most stupendous lack of romantic watchability since Attack of the Clones. It's so bad. Kristen Stewart is hesitant to go home with Mackenzie Davis to meet her family for Christmas, but after Mackenzie Davis successfully talks her into it, she decides to tell her on the car ride there that she's still in the closet, that her parents don't know that she's gay, and that Kristen Stewart is going to have to pretend to be her ostensibly straight roommate the entire vacation. And, like, that sucks. Every secondary character in this movie totally outshines the two leads. Aubrey Plaza is good, Dan Levy's good, Mary Holland is great, but the plot and the writing and the absolute lack of any successful jokes, I was just roiling and groaning like a fever victim trying to watch this thing. I hated it. Now, I should say, is my opinion the only one you should be listening to before making any kind of judgment on this movie? Of course not. Is this movie toxic or harmful or problematic in any way? I don't think so. And does a queer movie making space for itself in the mainstream in a genre that is dominated by heterosexuality need to be good in order to be valuable and important? No, I don't think so. But is Happiest Season stupendously painful and unwatchable? That I do think, yes. Anyway, 2 out of 10, let's move on. Uncle Frank was another pleasant surprise this year. It tells the story of a gay man in the Deep South traveling across the country with his husband and his niece to attend his father's funeral. It's very much a coming out story, and it is very much a gay oppression story, but it is one that I found to be very effective and moving, even if it is a misuse of Stephen Root, in my opinion. And honestly, most of what I loved about it came down to the performances from Sophia Lillis, Peter Macdassi, and Paul Bettany, who I think is just my all-time favorite actor. Maybe that's it. A lot of people are kind of lukewarm on this movie. Maybe the X factor with me is that I just like Paul Bettany too much. Anyway, whatever. I liked it. I thought it was super good. I'll give it a 7 out of 10. I think of myself as a pretty filmically open-minded person. As long as a movie is good, there aren't really any genres that I try to avoid, typically. At least that's what I thought a few months ago. But over the course of this experiment, I've found that there is one genre that I can't do, and that is terminal cancer movies. Movies where a teenager gets a horrible diagnosis and spends the whole movie grappling with the fact that they're gonna die before they die at the end of the movie. Like, who cares? I don't know. I just can't do it. I can't do that kind of movie. I think it's so pointless. Anyway, Life in a Year stars Jaden Smith as a preppy, rich overachiever, and Cara Delevingne as a quirky, homeless street youth. So obviously they fall in love, but then it turns out that Cara Delevingne has terminal lung cancer, I think. So Jaden Smith goes out of his way to show her that he cares about her by giving her a whole life in a year. He sets up a calendar. And with the caveat that I fundamentally don't like this kind of movie, I still found Life in a Year to be pretty watchable, mostly because it's not super heavy-handed about the doom and gloom of it all until much later in the movie. It kind of blindsides you with it. Because this movie is genuinely pretty funny a lot of the time in the first couple of acts. And I feel like Jaden Smith is sort of coming into his own as a performer in a way that I appreciate. And just in general, it is such a campy, over-the-top, by-the-numbers version of a girlfriend with cancer movie that it's almost easy to distance yourself from the real emotion of it until it's too late. And then she dies and you cry at the end, because that's what you do. It serves its function as a utility. Anyway, like I said, not fundamentally meaningful. Cheesy and goofy and rote, but still decently fun to watch. I'll give it a 6 out of 10.
The story of a wild horse and the girl she loved.
Holy shit, Black Beauty is so boring. It's the newest adaptation of a book that was written in the Reconstruction era in post-Civil War America, where the pitch was, what if a girl got a horse? But today, in the year of our Lord 2020, what if a girl got a horse? cannot sustain a fucking 2-hour movie. Jesus. We gotta stop with Black Beauty, you guys. We gotta move on. Black Beauty... It's fucking boring. Literally, it's pointless. I hate it. I don't like it one bit. I'm gonna give Black Beauty a 2 out of 10. Now, I'm going to try to wrap this up quickly, but before I go, I want to make an announcement, which is that I have decided that next month's video, the video about movies from December of 2020, is going to be the last episode I make of this series, for a lot of different reasons. The main reason is Warner Brothers' HBO Max deal, which, in my opinion, totally changes the entire conceit of what this series of videos was supposed to be. For those who don't know, Warner Brothers recently announced that for the next calendar year in 2021, they are going to release all of their movies on HBO Max and in theaters simultaneously, which I think just fundamentally doesn't jive with the premise of this series. And on top of that, these videos take a lot of work, and I'm very stressed out about them a lot of the time. And I think it just feels like a clean breaking off point where I can go and work on something else afterwards, you know? But while you're waiting, why don't you go ahead and check out my podcast, which is available on all podcast platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, all that kind of stuff. It's called No Nerds Allowed, just like the channel. But on top of that, we also stream the podcast live on YouTube right here on this channel every Friday night. So tune in for that. If you're subscribed, you'll know about it. Which brings me to my next point. Hey, why don't you subscribe? Because you'll catch my next video, you'll catch my podcast streams, and you'll catch whatever it is I decide to do after I wrap up Full Stream Ahead, which I think is going to be exciting. I have ideas that I'm excited about. So that's all. Thank you so much for watching, and make sure you're checking back in for the finale of Full Stream Ahead next month. I'll see you then.